On this Thursday night, he said, and she was believed. Now, Bill Cosby is guilty of drugging and sexually assaulting a Canadian woman. How Andrea Constand's enduring struggle led to justice after 14 years, and how the recent Me Too movement may have played a part. But does one verdict really mean it's safer for other women to step forward?
Also tonight, dissecting a historic international meeting happening right now. The leaders of the Koreas, North and South, are shaking hands and sitting down to talk. But can there really be a meeting of the minds? This is The National.
Bill Cosby's reckoning has arrived. A Pennsylvania jury has found the entertainer guilty of 3 counts of aggravated indecent assault, seemingly the final nail in his 6-decade-long career. Cosby was brought down by a Canadian. Andrea Constand said the comedian drugged and sexually assaulted her at his home 14 years ago, plying her with pills and alcohol. Her account startlingly similar to claims made by more than 60 other women. The crucial difference, though, statutes of limitations barred prosecutors from filing charges in their cases. Not so for Constand. As Stephen D'Souza tells us, Cosby's reputation and legacy are in tatters.
For some in court, this was a moment decades in the making.
I feel like I'm dreaming. Can you pinch me?
For Canadian Andrea Constand, the only one of the more than 60 women to see her accusations against Cosby go to court, this was victory.
Bill Cosby, 3 words for you. Guilty, guilty, guilty!
The other accusers celebrated the decision.
After all is said and done, women were finally believed, and we thank the jury so much for that.
Now let me get this straight.
It's been a long fall for the once beloved comedian, who was best known for breaking racial barriers in television.
And people don't believe, people think I'm making it up.
When a comedian called Cosby a rapist in 2014, long dormant accusations came to the surface. Stories of sexual assault going back to the 60s. But with the statute of limitations passed on many, only Andrea Constand ended up in court. At the first trial last year, the jury deliberated for 5 days, but couldn't reach a decision. Since then, the Me Too movement has taken hold, an era of heightened awareness of sexual harassment and assault that has brought down major names in politics and entertainment. Cosby becomes the first to be punished in a criminal court and the court of public opinion.
We are vindicated, we are validated, and we are now part of the tsunami of women's power and justice. We are not shutting up and we're not going away. Get over it.
Cosby showed little emotion as the verdict was read. Later, he called the district attorney an asshole in court. He was freed on bail, despite the outburst.
We don't think Mr. Cosby is guilty of anything, and the fight is not over. Thank you.
Are you going to appeal, sir?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, very strongly.
Constand didn't speak after the verdict as the DA praised her courage.
I am so happy today that I can say that although justice was delayed, it was not denied.
Justice, the DA promised, that will come no matter how much money or power the accused has, that victims will be heard.
We really know today who was behind that act, who the real Bill Cosby was.
His message that while Bill Cosby may be the first big name convicted in the Me Too era, he won't be the last. Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, New York.
As Stephen said, obviously today was hugely emotional for everyone involved in the Cosby saga and the Me Too movement, for that matter. Let's hear a little more from 2 of the women in that courtroom today, longtime Cosby accuser Lily Bernard and lawyer Gloria Allred.
Women are believed, and not only on #MeToo, but in a court of law where they were under oath, where they testified truthfully, where they were attacked, where they were smeared, where they were denigrated.
Last year, when I was sitting in the courtroom of the first trial and the verdict was hung, I left with such a tremendous sense of disappointment. And it became evident to me that the justice system is light years behind modern culture. But today, this jury has shown that what the Me Too movement has saying is that women are worthy of being believed.
It is hard to overstate the significance of today's guilty verdict. Consider these dozens of women who shared their stories with New York Magazine a few years ago. They make up just half of the number of women who accuse Cosby of sexual assault, some going all the way back to the 1960s. Joining me now for a closer look at the Canadian. At the center of this case is Diana Moskovitz, a senior editor at Deadspin, who joins me tonight from Norristown, Pennsylvania. Diana, let's talk about Andrea Constand and the significance of this woman in this case. What can you tell us about her?
She really deserves so much credit. She was the first person to go to law enforcement and say Bill Cosby had drugged and sexually assaulted her. And without her, we have no way of knowing if more women would have come forward or not.
So if she started this ball moving, if you will, how do you think things have changed from when that started? The first allegation, the first trial, and then the second one?
A lot has changed. Obviously, one of the big changes is that now we had a district attorney who felt that this was a case that could be brought, that could be won. We're now in a world that is post-Harvey Weinstein, post-Me Too, and I think you really see those changes, especially in terms of the jury. It's a jury of your peers, and that means our peers, Bill Cosby's peers, came together and said, there's enough evidence to convict you. And again, when she first came forward, the DA would not even bring the case.
I know that the defense attorney in closing arguments referenced in a subtle way the Me Too movement and talked about how the jury shouldn't be influenced by, I think she used the word mob rule. Clearly that did not resonate. What was your sense of how the jurors took that argument?
Throughout the whole case, they seemed to be taking it very seriously. This was a very studious jury. They were paying attention. They took a lot of notes. There was one moment where the court forgot to give them their notebooks back, and they actually stopped and said, hey, where are our notebooks? We need to keep taking notes. So they paid vigorous attention, and I think that, one thing I take away from this is that I wonder what this says to defense attorneys, that this playbook you have where you just try to shame these women, where you do character assassination, where you just bring up how many men that they've slept with as a way to discredit them. Does that still work? Because this jury saw all of that and said, no, this does not discredit these witnesses, and we believe them.
So obviously, Mr. Cosby's lawyer said today that they plan to appeal. But regardless of that, do you think that this verdict today will have a lasting impact on how these kinds of cases go forward? You referenced it there, but do you think it's going to change things in some way?
I do. It's hard to say, right? Because none of us can predict the future. But I do think that, to district attorneys, it says you can bring these cases and you can win these cases. I think to defense lawyers, it says, hey, that playbook you used, it might not be working anymore, And I know the district attorney here, Kevin Steele, he talked a lot in his press conference about wanting this to show victims, come to us, we will believe you. We'll see if this gets recreated, across the country, or if, we'll see if it's a fluke. I know a lot of people here think hopefully not.
Okay, Diana Moskovitz, thank you for giving us your perspective from there tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So now what happens to Cosby? Despite the guilty verdict and the prosecution's pitch to have his bail revoked, he won't find himself in a cell just yet. He's allowed to go home, but was told to stay there. Cosby was forced to surrender his passport and ordered not to leave Pennsylvania. He'll also be fitted with a GPS tracker until his sentencing hearing, which hasn't been scheduled yet.
And here's a look at what else we are working on tonight. She applied for a job as a police officer, but was horrified to find out someone had sent intimate pictures of her to her potential employer. Now she's suing in what could be a precedent-setting case.
And as the difficult healing process continues in the wake of the Toronto attack, one woman describes comforting one of the men killed in the last moments of his life.
But first, a significant step on the Korean peninsula as Kim Jong-un crosses a historic line. He has met face-to-face with South Korea's President Moon Jae-in in the demilitarized zone. Remember, these are two countries still technically at war with one another. And while nuclear weapons will most certainly be up for discussion, bear in mind, North Korea's nuclear capabilities have come a long way since leaders of both countries last met more than 10 years ago. So, what can we expect from this face-to-face? The CBC's Asia correspondent Sasha Petrusik joins us now from Seoul. Sasha, what are the stakes for both leaders?
Well, Andrew, obviously the big question is whether Kim Jong-un would be willing to negotiate away all these nuclear weapons he's been working so hard on, that he's invested so much in. We won't have an answer from this meeting here today. It's just a one-day meeting, but this could be an important first step. Just last year, North Korea's Kim Jong-un was marshaling a military parade to show off his nuclear missiles and threatening war against the U.S. and South Korea. Today, a remarkably different symbolic display aimed at peace. And that's why many South Koreans are already breathing easier, especially in the village of Daesungdong, right next to the summit site, in the middle of the tense border zone. We want to keep living in this peaceful atmosphere that's been created recently, says the head of the village. There's a lot riding on this summit for both leaders. For South Korea's Moon Jae-in, he's been working his whole career for just this kind of opportunity to bring North and South together. And for the North, on the other side, Kim Jong-un has to prove to the United States that this time North Korea is serious about negotiating.
If Kim Jong-un has real intention of denuclearization, he has to show what would be the concrete measure.
At this summit, experts are watching for small signs of North Korea's commitment to peace. Maybe a joint declaration that the Korean War has formally ended, 65 years after most fighting stopped. And maybe tiny steps toward the kind of reunification that's optimistically shown on the lawn in front of Seoul City Hall, a floral map of a united Korea.
Now, Sasha, this is the latest in an almost unbelievable series of changes in the relationship between the North and the South. How did things come so far so quickly?
Yeah, it's been quite a ride. Well, we don't know the clear answer to that. We'd have to talk to Kim Jong-un for that. But obviously, sanctions had an impact. There's been an increasing history of really tough sanctions by the UN and the US. That had some impact, but it really wasn't until the last few months when China decided to turn off the taps, to stop most of the fuel from going in, to stop other very important imports, that North Korea really started feeling the pain, and that had to have had an impact on a decision to do something about it.
Right, and Sasha, hold tight, because I want you to listen to something, because here in Canada, there are some 200,000 people with Korean origins, many of whom are watching this all unfold very closely. And today, we asked some of them what they hope will come of all this.
I don't think peace will be right away, but will be slowly. Hopefully, we can go North Korea, they can come South Korea, we can helping each other, we can build up together. I think everybody wants that.
I hope they get together, and then probably it's going to take a long time, but step by step, I think it's a great opportunity this time.
I don't have a lot of hope in the meeting because everyone, the UN and other governments have been trying to get involved with North Korea and trying to solve its problems since decades ago, and it's never been fixed, and there's never been any real progress so far. And I don't think, to be honest, in my opinion, I don't think this meeting would make a huge difference.
Kimchi, I think this meeting here is a preparation for the end game, which is the one that Trump's going to hold with Kim Jong-un. I think what peace will mean for both North and South Korea is fairly similar to what peace meant, or the breaking down of the walls between East and West Germany. I think there's hope that people will start feeling like they can just get on with the usual things of life that we all in this country, for example, take for granted.
So, Sasha, the one thing I want to pick up on, the point about how this may just be setting the stage for the possible meeting between Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump, the so-called endgame, as the gentleman put it. What's your read on that?
Well, there's no question that this is laying the foundation for that. I think South Korean President Moon Jae-in realizes it to the point where he's actually planning to finish the meeting here and in the coming weeks to get on a plane and go to Washington to brief and to prepare Donald Trump for his summit with Kim Jong-un, which could be coming in the next few weeks. That's what we've heard, end of May, beginning of June. We still don't know where. Donald Trump has said they've narrowed it down to 5 places, but that's still a big question mark. Also a very big question mark, what it is exactly that those two men can accomplish, given that there's been no preparatory work, and we still don't really know how far either one of them is willing to go in order to solve this problem. Andrew?
Sasha Petrusik in Seoul. Good to talk to you.
In Toronto tonight, a young woman is being remembered for her joyful, high-spirited approach to life. A life cut short just days ago. Anne-Marie D'Amico was the first victim of Monday's van attack to be identified. This vigil was held at her alma mater, Ryerson University, and it's clear the emotional wounds are still very fresh. Ioana Rimbliotis has led our coverage of this tragedy, and today she heard an incredible account of one victim's final moments. But she begins with the police investigation.
If there is evidence of a motive, of a plan, police are looking for it here, at the home where Alec Manassian lived. To help explain the flashes of horror captured on this surveillance video, Mike Lim gave police the video. It's from his karaoke bar. What he saw when he ran out still leaves him at a loss.
Awful. Very bad. Very bad.
Flowers mark where pedestrians died, a spot some can't bear to look at. It's where Shanahan held a man's hand and encouraged him to hold on.
I didn't want him to be alone, and even though I didn't know him personally, I didn't want him to just feel like empty. I really did try not to cry in front of him because I thought if I cried, then he would think that there's no hope.
That man, Char Min Gang, is among the dead, his photo nestled with others who have been named in a mound of flowers and notes. The memorial swells by the hour, and the need grows too, to find out more about the victims who haven't been identified yet.
It's an opportunity to for their story to be shared, so they're not just strangers or just victims. It's more than that.
When you see the face or when you hear the name, it's more real. Gets close to us, to our feelings. When you don't know, maybe you just ignore them.
It would be easy to reflect less, to rush into a new normal. But the flowers are still too fresh, the tragedy still too unsettled. Blocks away, where the van attack ended, therapy dogs offered comfort.
It's kind of like, make you not forget, but just, give you a little break from what we were thinking the last few days.
There is no forgetting, and for some, the need to remember together. At a vigil tonight for Anne-Marie D'Amico, who died that day, friends gathered. For them, and so many, the rituals of mourning are just beginning. Ioana Rimbliotis, CBC News, Toronto.
A vigil for all the victims is planned for Sunday evening. It will be held at Mel Lastman Square, and that's a public plaza near the path of Monday's rampage. You can watch for our coverage of that Sunday on The National. Toronto is just one in a long list of cities, though, that's been hit by these vehicle attacks. In 2016, a stolen truck killed 11 pedestrians and injured 49 people at a Berlin Christmas market. In Barcelona, just last August, a rented van careened through its famous pedestrian mall, Las Ramblas, killing 13 people and injuring 50 more. As Briar Stewart explains, it spurred urban planners now to look for solutions.
On this shop floor, workers prepare to ship out a product that's in high demand.
They're basically intended to protect a building from impact from a vehicle or pedestrians from impact from a vehicle.
Brad Doan sells bollards, which are installed in front of buildings, at sports stadiums, and along walkways.
The bollard business is thriving for us. It began probably around 9/11 was the major transition in the market for us.
His products can fit over high security posts, some of which are designed to withstand being hit by a semi-truck. 80% of his clients are in the U.S., but the Canadian market is growing as more cities look at how to make their spaces safer. Last year in New York, a driver mowed down a crowd of pedestrians, killing one and injuring 22 others. It might have been worse without recently installed security measures.
When a car came through here in a deliberate act, that car was impaled over there on two of these bollards.
They were installed as part of a rework of Times Square to make it safer for pedestrians.
As people have a chance to redesign spaces around buildings, they're looking for ways to create better public space and safer public space at the same time. It really needs to be designed before.
A Canadian example is this new square in Vancouver, where large benches and planters make the space enjoyable, but can also act as a barrier if a vehicle were to drive through here.
You can, I think, inadvertently bring about more anxiety.
This urban planner says it's important for cities to strike the right balance.
There are larger challenges when it comes to safety, when it comes to road safety, when it comes to the interface of bicyclists to cars. And then that's really where the danger and where the injuries really occur.
Making spaces safer and more livable for daily life can also help cities protect against the unthinkable. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Vancouver.
Let's take a look now at what else is ahead tonight on The National. Donald Trump called his friends today on Fox and Friends. We'll have more on his half-hour-long tirade about the Justice Department, the FBI, even Stormy Daniels.
I wish he'd call me once in a while. And does the federal government have the right to build pipelines and bring in a carbon tax? Two provinces are now asking the court to decide. At Issue is here to break down what's really at stake for the Prime Minister.
Plus, a little later, putting Manitoba's revenge porn laws to the test.
I was informed that intimate images had been brought in to the Brandon Police Service.
What went through your head when you heard that?
Shock, embarrassment, humiliation, confusion as to, you know, how did this happen kind of thing.
Robert Mugabe, having now made the transition to fully fledged dictator, sought comfort today amongst his fellow African rulers. It was a shrewd calculation. More than a few of his African peers share his notions of democracy.
L'Afrique.
African Union Commission Chairman Jean Ping read a bland statement calling on Zimbabweans to work together in the interest of their country. Only Kenya's prime minister referred to Mugabe's murderous methods of retaining power. Raila Odinga favors outside intervention.
My view is that the African Union should not accept or entertain Mr. Mugabe. He should be suspended until he agrees to allow the African Union to facilitate free and fair elections between him and his opponent.
Mugabe forced Zimbabweans at gunpoint last week to install him as president for a 6th term. Yesterday, he was offering to negotiate with the opposition he's been brutalizing. The opposition leader, though, has taken refuge inside the Dutch embassy, fearing for his life.
The inauguration is a meaningless exercise. The world has said so, Zimbabweans have said so. So it's an exercise in self-delusion.
Britain's Prime Minister agreed.
The message that is coming from the whole of the world is that the so-called election will not be recognized as legitimate.
In Washington, the administration called the election a sham and threatened sanctions.
We will press for strong action by the United Nations, but we could also act unilaterally.
And this afternoon, the UN Security Council was considering a U.S.-sponsored draft resolution rejecting the rigged election and imposing an arms embargo on Mugabe.
Well, whether you support him or not, it is hard to deny it's been a bad few months for Donald Trump. He can barely keep a cabinet secretary or get a new one approved, never mind the ongoing FBI investigation. So today, Trump called up some friends, perhaps for a little moral support, perhaps for a chance to vent, and it was broadcast live to millions. Paul Hunter takes us through it.
Give Donald Trump this much, he's never at a loss for words or a platform.
Thank you so much for being with us, Mr. President.
This morning, calling into Fox News and letting loose on pretty much everything.
They have a witch hunt against the President of the United States going on.
Slamming his own Justice Department over its investigation of his personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, himself in court this morning after this month's FBI raid at his office. Cohen's business dealings are at issue, but he also oversaw that so-called hush money payment to porn actress Stormy Daniels over her alleged one-night stand with Trump. Today, the president downplayed his ties with Cohen.
Well, as a percentage of my overall legal work, a tiny, tiny little fraction. But Michael would represent me and represent me on some things. He represents me like with this crazy Stormy Daniels deal.
But that's the closest Trump has linked himself to the Daniels allegations. Then there's White House Dr. Ronnie Jackson.
Doc Ronnie, we call him Doc Ronnie.
Who today withdrew as Trump's pick to run the Veterans Affairs Department under allegations he'd played loose with prescription drugs and alcohol, dubbed by some the Candyman. All of it, said Trump, false.
Just an incredible man, an incredible man.
And all of that as Trump's embattled head of the Environmental Protection Agency was grilled on Capitol Hill for, among other things, installing a $43,000 private phone booth in his office, today denying he'd done anything untoward.
Facts are facts and fiction is fiction. And a lie doesn't become truth just because it appears on the front page of the newspaper.
Trump told Fox News these are busy days. In fact, for wife Melania's birthday today,
I got a beautiful card, there's some beautiful flowers.
Adding it's all he had time for. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Washington.
Ahead tonight on The National, my favorite night, hopefully yours, At Issue Night. Chantal, Andrew, and Shachi are all here, and tonight we're talking carbon taxes, pipelines, and of course the Prime Minister.
Dr. David Suzuki's book, The Introduction to Genetic Analysis, is still one of the world's most widely used textbooks on genetics. But he spends most of his time running around not only this country but the planet, trying to save it, trying to figure out ways to get our attention so that we might pay a little bit more attention to our future. In fact, he goes to great lengths. He goes to great lengths. This is David Suzuki on the cover of a television magazine, covered only with a fig leaf. Is this really you?
That is me, I'm afraid.
That's the body?
Yeah, being an old man.
You're in great shape.
Thank you.
What are you doing, working out every day?
I do work out. Not every day, but I do work out.
What's the secret? You must have the secret of perpetual life.
Because one is over 60, it doesn't mean you have to just fall apart.
Yeah. This mission of yours has literally been lifelong. Take us way back, because I don't know how many people know that as a kid you were interned in a war camp in this country.
The irony is that, well, I'm a third-generation Canadian. My grandparents emigrated here early in this century, and they were boat builders in Vancouver. My mother and father were both born in Vancouver.
Yeah.
And of course, like 20-some-odd thousand other Japanese Canadians, we were interned. The irony to me, though, is that we were interned in a valley called the Slocan Valley. And many people, I'm sure, know it now as the place where Valhalla Provincial Park is.
Right.
Well, that was my playground as a boy.
Yeah.
And because this had all happened so suddenly, there were about 15,000 Japanese Canadians in this valley, and we're in these little shacks. There were no teachers. I went, we were rounded up when I was 6, and I didn't go to school until I was almost 8. So you can imagine for a kid in this paradise.
This was heaven.
Yeah. So that for me was a really formative time. The irony, of course, is that while we were in the camps, a very important experiment was done at Rockefeller University, which was the first definitive proof that DNA is the genetic material. Yeah. That came out in 1944. So I find it an interesting conjunction that while we were imprisoned for reasons of racism based on the idea that if you're Japanese, doesn't matter whether you're 2nd or 3rd generation.
You must be a bad guy. Yeah.
It's a genetic trait of our race. While we were undergoing that, in fact, the beginning of this genetic revolution was actually happening.
But you didn't know that then. I mean, even as a kid, you thought maybe if you went and got your eyes fixed, you wouldn't
the terrible aspect of that is the sense of self-hatred. And I can remember when we moved to Ontario, when I had to walk down the street with my family, I would always lag way behind because I didn't want to be seen with my parents or my sisters who were Japanese, right? Of course, every time I looked in the mirror, I hated it because you can't deny these eyes, and I wanted to save my money and have an eye operation and get my hair dyed and all of that.
Fortunately, you put it to better use.
Well, I guess the problem is I think it's a kind of sickness when you, at the age of 63, are still trying to prove to Canadians that you're a worthwhile human being. You know, I mean, my kind of drive is, I'm sure, has its roots in that sense of being an outsider and wanting to prove that I can be trusted and that I can be.
Is that why you took on science? It has in our world, of course, science is fact and science is truth. It's like mathematics. It's not like you're a philosopher or, you know, all of that. That this was the way that people would not be able to challenge you. You'd say, here's how it happened.
No, it was really a happenstance thing. I loved biology. I wanted to be an entomologist. I wanted to study insects. Yeah. When I was a kid, I used to collect insects.
Tonight on The National, a frustrating end to the investigation into the plane crash that killed former Alberta Premier Jim Prentice and 3 others back in 2016. Officials say they still can't say for sure what caused it to go down.
Without hard data, without verifiable data, we cannot know for certain what happened that night.
No data because there was no flight recorder or voice recorder on board. For that type of plane, it wasn't required either. So for now, the leading theory is that the pilot became disoriented. The investigation found he didn't have enough recent experience flying at night. 2 Canadian pilots accused of being drunk when preparing to fly an Air Transat plane have had their charges dropped. The reason, prosecutors say, is their blood samples were mistakenly destroyed in a Scottish prison. The 2 men were about to fly from Glasgow to Toronto in 2016 when they were reported by fellow crew. But now Air Transat says their suspensions will be lifted now that charges have been dropped. In Ontario today, an ethics ruling against former PC leader Patrick Brown. The province's Integrity Commissioner has found that he broke the legislature's ethics laws by not disclosing rental income or a loan from a would-be PC candidate. Brown apologized today on Twitter, and the Integrity Commissioner is recommending he be reprimanded by the legislature.
Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister is skipping a key international diplomatic summit in Europe to remain at the NAFTA talks in Washington. Our Katie Simpson on whether this is a sign that a deal is near.
Chrystia Freeland is seeing progress at the NAFTA negotiating table. So much so, she's canceled a long-planned trip to NATO to keep the Washington talks going.
And I think the good news for this week is all 3 countries are really getting down to a very detailed conversation.
Meetings continue tomorrow and could be the last face-to-face discussions before May 1st. It's the day the Americans say they will impose tariffs on Canadian and Mexican steel and aluminum unless there is a NAFTA agreement. While a deal isn't likely by that time, Canada is making new efforts to get a permanent exemption from the tariffs.
We're investing an additional sum of $30 million in the Canadian Border Service Agency. That will allow us to hire 40 additional investigators.
Those investigators will be looking to stop cheap Chinese steel from entering Canada en route to the U.S. market. The issue is a big irritant for Donald Trump, and Canada was originally able to get a temporary exemption in part by promising to do more to stop the problem. This former U.S. diplomat says the funding announcement will be welcome at the NAFTA negotiating table.
And this is a high-pressure time, and to leave now would be to leave a lot on the table, and you can't walk away from momentum like this.
Thank you very much.
If that momentum continues, Freeland could have to make new changes to her calendar to spend more time at the negotiating table. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Ottawa.
Provinces are not subsidiaries of the federal government. We do not believe the federal government has the constitutional right to impose this carbon tax on Saskatchewan industries, jobs, and families.
By issuing this reference today, we're confirming that we believe that we have the jurisdiction to ensure that if there was a catastrophic diluted bitumen spill, we have the ability to take steps to protect our economy and our environment.
Carbon tax, still two very bad words in Saskatchewan, and pipeline, these days a bad word in lots of parts of British Columbia. That was Premier Scott Moe on Wednesday and Premier John Horgan just this morning, both going to court, both hoping to prove to the federal government that their province is their business. Where does that leave one of Trudeau's favorite phrases, that the economy and the environment go hand in hand? We have at issue for all of those kinds of questions. Andrew Coyne is in Toronto tonight, Chantal Hébert is in Montreal, and Chachi Kurl joins us from Vancouver. Good to see everybody. Okay, so interesting the way these two stories are connected and how they are playing out, and will likely not have the same kind of outcome. Chantal, let's start with you. When we hear Premier Moe from Saskatchewan saying that provinces are not subsidiaries of the federal government, what does that tell you about sort of the state of federal-provincial relations right now?
Well, he is stating the obvious, as stated by the Supreme Court and the Beer ruling. That being said, his court challenge is of importance, for instance, to the Conservatives who are vying for power in Ontario and for the Conservatives who are hoping to take power in Alberta, i.e. there is more than one province that wants to test this. This is just the first test. And it's going to matter for the federal capacity to impose that carbon tax on provinces that do not want to put their own price or a price that corresponds to the federal requirement on carbon.
Andrew, how does that relate to the reference that John Horgan put forward today?
Well, it is interesting, as you say, that you have both happening at the same time. You have one province, Saskatchewan, saying, of course the federal government can legislate on pipelines, but it can't legislate on carbon taxes. The government of BC saying, of course it can legislate on carbon taxes, but it can't possibly legislate on pipelines. And if both of them have their way, then rather than doing both a carbon tax and a pipeline, as the federal government would prefer, we'll do neither. Which would be such a Canadian result. You know, I don't mind if I don't get what I want, just as long as I can keep you from getting what you want. Look, you know, of course the provinces aren't subsidiaries of the federal government, but the federal government is not a subsidiary of the provinces either. It has legitimate jurisdiction. I suspect the courts will find in both these cases it does in the end, but we'll waste a lot of time in the process.
Well, and I wonder if that's not sort of the point. Certainly in the case of BC, it must be, Chachi, that the Premier is just trying to delay things in hopes that the project will go away.
Well, look, to the extent that to many people in many parts of the country, this may look like a bunch of recalcitrant yahoos trying to play to their political bases because it works and run the clock down. The implications for both of these decisions are actually quite important. In BC, a negative ruling from the courts, if the courts come back and say, British Columbia, you don't have the jurisdiction, what that signals to the people of British Columbia, the vast majority of whom want to actually see the BC government, the Horgan government, put its tools down and walk away in the event that the courts rule against the BC government. They have no appetite for a constitutional bun fight with the rest of the country, it actually then changes the debate and the conversation from one about pipelines, as you mentioned, bad word at the beginning of this little chat, to an even worse word, tankers. What British Columbians really want to hear about from the provincial government and the other parties here is what is the plan for spill prevention and response at sea. That is the sticking point. Now, in Saskatchewan, it's not just about jurisdiction. Does the federal government have jurisdiction to impose a carbon tax? But the way in which it happens. And of course, the Saskatchewan government is arguing that they already know from the Manitoba decision that the federal government has the jurisdiction to impose a carbon tax. It's just the way they do it.
Okay, Chantal, let me hear you weigh in on the BC part of it and how real that is and what that is actually about, do you think?
Well, it is real in the sense that if the company, Kinder Morgan, wants certainty as to its capacity to move oil through that pipeline and the quantity of oil that it would be expanding the pipeline for, that certainty from the legal standpoint is not going to be coming by May 31st.
No.
It's going to take, someone said more than a month, yes, for sure more than a month, and possibly longer than a year if this goes to the Supreme Court. So if what Kinder Morgan was looking for was certainty that it was building or expanding a pipeline for its product, it's not going to get that. No matter what anyone says about the federal government as jurisdiction, you just don't know. So the uncertainty will be remaining. And to add a word about the Saskatchewan thing, even if the pipeline did get built tomorrow, it would not change the fact that Saskatchewan is going to court over the carbon tax and that other Conservative parties, if they were in power, would like to go to court. One is not contingent on the other.
You can see the beginning of an exit ramp, though, for the BC government in this reference, in the third of the three questions they're asking. So the first two are, do we have generally this kind of legislative competence to legislate on environmental matters? Secondly, can we apply it to interprovincial pipelines? And the courts will probably give a yes, but on that. But the third one is, what happens if there's federal legislation that basically sets down the rules for this, and does provincial legislation have to give way? Yes, it does. I'm sure the courts will rule. And that's where this pending federal legislation may come into play, that it actually lays down those rules and the courts say. Now, the fly in the ointment there is the reference question asks about existing federal legislation. So there'll be, I guess, a question of, when does this legislation come in, the federal legislation? But
they would need to move pretty quickly with that. I don't know what the timeline is for them, but as Chantal says, if May 31st is this drop-dead date in some way for Kinder Morgan, that will have to start moving very, very quickly to reassure
people. There is no way. Let's be clear. There is no way that a serious court, and the BC Court of Appeal is a serious court, will hear a reference and pronounce on it by May 31st. That's not going to happen.
No. But the legislation could be tabled before that.
That's right. And the feds can bring in what they've also talked about doing, which is some kind of financial backstop. What I would hope is it's one that's kind of contingent. In other words, if the pipeline is delayed or beyond endurance, then we'll compensate you rather than giving them money up front. And I think that would give Kinder Morgan the kind of assurance it can properly require. We want to prevent Kinder Morgan from gaming this at the same time, but I think they have a legitimate issue on that.
Okay, Shachi, you wanted in there.
Yeah, and to that point, I think this is now almost going a little bit beyond Kinder Morgan. This may transcend Kinder Morgan. They have said that they'll walk away, or they're very close to walking away, but into that vacuum has come and flown the governments of Alberta and the government of Canada. So, when Justin Trudeau talks about this pipeline will be built, this is now no longer, again, about what Kinder Morgan does. And I think to Andrew's point, they have played this quite astutely, quite smartly. They may simply walk away, leaving Canadian taxpayers holding the bill on this. And again, it doesn't solve the problem or the sticking point in British Columbia for 3/4 of them, even those who support this project. They're very, very worried about that coastline issue. And we saw a little bit of movement today with that letter from Minister McKenna to John Horgan, the Premier of BC, saying, look, we'll work with you a little bit more on this. That is the direction direction Ottawa needs to be moving in order to finally find some endpoint to this conflict.
I just wonder where this leaves, though, the federal government, who, as I said off the top there, the Prime Minister talking always about how you can balance the economy and the environment. And I just want to show people quickly what the Parliamentary Budget Officer released this week about the cost of carbon taxes, saying that it will cost $10 billion off the GDP by 2022. So, I mean, that to me, I don't know. Does that mean you have to have the pipeline built, or does it mean that you can't actually balance those two things? Chantal?
I'm not sure that it means you need the pipeline built, although you want the strongest economy that you can, and possibly a healthier oil industry goes in that direction. But what the Parliamentary Budget Officer also said is that you could mitigate the impact of the carbon tax on the economy depending on how government handle the revenue from that tax, yes, and whether they use it structurally or they use it just to send you a check so that you can go and say, I got my money back from the carbon tax. So this $10 billion is not the last word. It's kind of an invitation to structure it intelligently.
Yeah, it's you know, if they, as Chantal says, if they just give the money back as a kind of a lump sum, then yeah, you get this a 0.5 percentage point, which is not the end of the world to begin with, a 0.5 percentage point off of GDP. If they use it to cut tax rates, then that impact, the PBO calculates, is reduced to about 1/10 of 1% of GDP, which people wouldn't even notice. So it does place a premium on doing the policy right. But look, we have a slim to none chance at this point of meeting our 2030 Paris Accord commitments. The slim thing is if we do it by carbon pricing. If we don't do carbon pricing, then we're not going to get anywhere near there, and we're only going to get carbon pricing if we build that pipeline.
About 10 seconds, Shachi, last word.
Okay, at the end of the day, for Canadians, they're not necessarily paying attention to cost to GDP or to economic growth, but where the vulnerability for this government is, if Canadians, as they are pumping gas in this summer of escalating gas prices, are now more aware of the impact of carbon pricing on that, it's something that sticks in their mind. It makes the party vulnerable on that promise of affordability and making life easier for the middle class that they campaigned on as we march towards an election. And of course, it also makes them a little bit vulnerable on that promise to steward and keep the economy growing well. It doesn't matter what the real details are here. It matters the perception of it and what the opposition does with it. And they have the potential to have a field day with it.
Okay. Good talk, everybody. Thank you for being here. And good news if you want more of us talking. At Issue is also a podcast, extra content, and the main panel every week. And this week's bonus topic, Kathleen Wynne says it's a disagreement between accountants. Ontario's Auditor General says it's a $5 billion fib. What's the difference? Find out. iTunes, any major podcast app, our website, cbcnews.ca/The National.
And still to come on The National, Manitoba's revenge porn laws being put to the test after intimate images of a young police officer wound up in the wrong hands.
I was obviously frustrated and embarrassed and humiliated that they were saved, and it was probably a little naive of me to think that, you know, once you send something like that out there, that it's just gone.
Because of his size, and particularly in this league, which is a really rough league, and I tell you, are you scared for him at all?
No, Wayne has. If you watch him closely, there are very few times that he'll really get hammered. He seems to have eyes in the back of his head at times, but instead of forcing against the check, Wayne has the knack of rolling with the check, and he never gets hurt badly in that respect.
You're not scared?
No.
But he's found, and what we found, that they're checking him a lot closer, and they're going to continue to check him. But I think he has enough brains, enough moxie to overcome all the checkers on him.
The number of goals he's getting and the number of points he's getting must surprise even you. I mean, it's impossible for a 16-year-old to do that in junior A.
That's something that we've never expected or dreamed of. We thought play September, come Christmas, that he would help our hockey club. Here he came to our training camp, we dropped the puck. From day one, he's helped our club and continued to score and score.
things do you think, Wayne, when you're operating a play?
Well, when I'm out there, I try to think as far ahead as I can. You know, even before the play develops, try to think where the puck's gonna go and where to be. You know, and when I go in on a goal, I think about everything else but scoring. You know, I just go in there and like the other night in Ottawa, I was gonna do something. I was thinking of it anyway, and all of a sudden, everything just went blank. And all of a sudden, I looked up and the goalie was right there, and I just had to go around him. I was fortunate enough to score.
Is that instinct, you think, or what is it?
Part of it's instinct, you know, but a lot of it takes a lot of practice. Not in the older age, but when you're younger, 4, 5, 6, even 10, 11, you know. And I worked on it then real hard, and it's been paying off for him.
What do you want for him? You want him to be the next Bobby Orr?
Well, I don't think he could be a Bobby Orr, but whatever Wayne wants. And like I said earlier, as long as we can get his schooling out of hockey, I think both his mother and myself have, you know, accomplished everything that all the time has gone into with him.
Right now, I want to play 2 solid years of junior A hockey and get my grade 12 or at least 13. And if I stay in junior hockey, go farther in school. But
university?
Yes, I'll be going to attend university for sure. But
even if you turn pro?
I don't know. That's too far ahead. I know that I'm going to grade 13. And after that, I'll make up my mind what I'm going to do.
Still 4 years away, too, so anything could happen in 4 years. And we had always hoped that as long as we got Wayne his schooling through hockey, we've pretty well accomplished everything that we wanted to do in respect to Wayne and hockey.
I don't know what's going to happen, though. I just hope that I make pro hockey.
A young police officer is fighting back after intimate photos she sent to a man wound up in the hands of a potential employer. Now, as Katie Nicholson explains, she's putting Manitoba's new revenge porn laws to the test.
Brittany Rock is used to helping victims. The young police officer never thought she'd become a victim herself.
You think it can't happen to you, but it can.
It started with a summer fling with a police officer. They exchanged intimate images. When the relationship ended, Rock assumed he destroyed them. But 2 years later, as she applied for a job with Brandon Police, a nightmare scenario.
I was informed that intimate images had been brought in to the Brandon Police Service.
What went through your head when you heard that?
Shock, embarrassment, humiliation, confusion as to, you know, how did this happen?
So how did it happen? In a civil suit, Rock alleges another woman who used to be an employee of the Brandon Police and who also had a relationship with that officer found and shared those images with Brandon Police in a case of intentional and malicious misconduct, commonly referred to as revenge porn.
She wanted to maybe hurt me because she was hurting as well.
In a draft statement of defense, the woman denies the allegations, but says if those images were shared, it was in the public interest. The allegations have not been proven in court, but this is one of the first cases that will test a new Manitoba law that helps victims whose images are shared without their consent.
I don't think people really understand just how serious this is.
Rock's lawyer hopes the case makes people think before they hit send.
You don't do something that's potentially this life-destroying and share intimate images of them with someone else without their consent. There's just absolutely no excuse for that.
It's also illegal. In 2015, changes to the criminal code made it an offense to share intimate images without the consent of the person who's actually in them. The RCMP confirms it is investigating whether criminal charges will be laid in Rock's case. Now working for another police force, Brittany Rock is speaking out to inspire others.
My hope is that by kind of coming forward and maybe telling my side of the story, it will empower victims. You have done nothing wrong.
Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Cases such as this could get more common because a lot of people are sexting. Get this, a survey in the U.S. found 88% of adults have done it at least once. Now, the laws on spreading around explicit photos of someone else meant to be private, they vary state by state. But here in Canada, 1 year after changes to the criminal code were made, 28 people have been charged.
Go deeper on the stories of the day like that one earlier in the day. Subscribe to our newsletter at cbcnews.ca/The National. The National today will take you inside our journalism every afternoon.
Call it Tommy Mania. In the very church where Tommy Douglas preached, his adoring fans, many old friends of the man, gathered to cheer him on.
For every man, woman, and child, irrespective of their income, their age, or their business anything.
After weeks of suspense, the CBC's greatest Canadian would be revealed. There was no doubt who the people's choice was here.
Oh, I'm a strong supporter of Tommy Douglas. I think he's done such a great thing for our Canada. He's an amazing man.
A woman tells me her doctor.
Douglas was Saskatchewan's premier from 1944 to 1961, but his greatest legacy, championing universal health care.
Medical care is so important that it ought not to have a price tag on it.
Glenn Rasmussen worked on Douglas's election campaigns.
There's great Canadians, but I think he is one of the greatest.
Is he the greatest?
I think he is the greatest.
It was time to find out if enough Canadians agreed.
Tommy! For he's a jolly good fellow, which nobody can deny.
Oh, it's right. It's absolutely A1. And he's the right choice.
It's just absolutely perfect. The people have really spoken, and it shows what a great man he was.
Tommy Douglas never became prime minister, but in this contest he beat 3 of them. And nowhere was the victory sweeter than here. Dean Gutile, CBC News, Weyburn.
Didn't have politicians arguing for politicians, etc. And I thought it was great to see Terry Fox do as well as he did. So, but again, I think it was fairly predictable to see someone like Tommy Douglas to win. So, but overall, it was entertaining.
My wife and I voted for Banting, but he came 4th. So, no, it was a good idea. Good. Nice to have a different perspective on thing, and it gives you something to watch since there's no ice available.
Well, I thought it was kind of a big disappointment because Don Cherry didn't win. Neither did Wayne Gretzky.
Tonight on The National, changes in the wake of the deadly Humboldt bus crash. CBC News has learned that the Saskatchewan government has committed to bringing in mandatory training for semi-truck drivers. The exact details are still being worked out, but the government says mandatory training will include a course that's a minimum of 70 hours long, and it'll be in place sometime next year. Also tonight, the National Gallery of Canada has reversed its controversial decision to sell Marc Chagall's The Eiffel Tower. The painting was set to hit a New York auction block on May 15th, and it was expected to fetch as much as $9 million US, but the decision to sell caused a lot of controversy, and backing out of the sale means the gallery may have to pay the auction house a pretty hefty penalty. Well, as we told you earlier in the program, a historic meeting has been unfolding tonight between the 2 leaders of North and South Korea, and both sides have choreographed every detail, right down to the lights and the cameras, all to capture the moment exactly right. And that is our moment of the day.
pretty astounding just to see all of that unfold. But let me show you another part of all of this. This is Peace House, the Peace House building where this meeting is taking place. And over the past 2 weeks, they've been renovating it for this summit. Carpet, new communication systems, new wallpaper, a new table that measures 218 millimeters to celebrate and commemorate this historic meeting this year.
Yeah, and if anyone ever needed convincing that details matter on this, I want to show folks the dessert for the meal being served. It's a mango mousse featuring a map of the Korean peninsula, but Japan has issued a strong protest because depicted on the map are islands that are actually in dispute, that Japan claims as its own. So it just goes to show you how closely the world is watching all of this.
Now I just want mango mousse. Anyway, that's the National for April 26th. Good night, everybody.
Good night.